Hello, 6th grade. We're going to start lesson 4.2 in your workbook on page 199. This is about opposites and absolute value. I can understand the absolute value of integers and how to order these numbers. What vocabulary will you learn? We're going to learn absolute value and opposites. Let's go ahead and write their definitions. Absolute value is the distance from zero. There are two integers that will be the same distance away from zero. So that are the same distance from zero. And here's an example. The absolute value of -2 means it is 2 spaces away from zero. The absolute value of +2 means that it is also 2 spaces away from zero. Opposite means the same digit but different sign. Let's take a look at some examples. I'm going to scoop my paper up. Integers are opposites when they're the same distance from zero on a number line, but in the opposite direction. The opposite of a positive integer is indicated by using the notation (2), which is read the opposite of 2. So when I see this negative sign here, it means the opposite of whatever's inside this parentheses. The opposite of a negative integer is indicated by using the notation like this, the opposite of -2. This means this would actually become a positive because the opposite of a negative is a positive. We're going to come down here to a few examples. It says, so the opposite of -2 is 2. What we're going to do is we're going to write a couple notes when we flip our paper over to the next page, to 200. So this one is telling you it will have a positive outcome. Well, this example down here, notice there are 3 negative signs. This one stays negative. So the opposite of a negative. Well, the opposite of a negative is a positive. And then I drop this down. And then the opposite of that positive, it makes it a negative again. Go ahead and flip your paper. So at the top of your paper where it says your notes, let's write a few things down here. We're going to write this. A negative with a negative is a positive. So negative with a negative is a positive. If you have a negative with a positive, it stays negative. We can also write an extra note saying if there's an even amount of negative signs, the answer is positive. If there is an odd amount, of negative signs, the answer is negative. Let's take a look at this on the number line. Use a number line to find opposites of integers. This is going to be pretty easy, but it's so easy to forget sometimes. Find the opposite of negative 5. It says graph negative 5 on the number line. Let's go ahead and do that. Put a point right at negative 5. The point graphed at negative 5 is blank units to the left of 0. Well, it's 5 units to the left. That's its distance. The point is the same number of units to the right of 0 is 5. So the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. We can do a quick check right here. The opposite of negative 21 is positive 21. And we see there are 2 negatives, and that makes a positive. It takes 2 sticks to make a plus sign. Let's go to our next talk about it. Can all positive integers be written with or without the plus sign? Can all negative integers be written with or without the negative sign? Well, yes, only positive integers can be written without the symbol. A negative number is only negative if it has the symbol. Let's just do this check right here. Josh is planting a flower that is 6 inches tall. He wants the hole he is digging to be as deep as the flower is tall. What integer represents the depth of the hole? Well, negative 6 would represent the depth of the hole because it's going in the ground the same height as the flower is tall. How does this compare to the height? And it is the opposite. Negative 6 is the opposite of positive 6. Let's go ahead and flip to the last page of the notes. This is talking about double checking with all of these negative symbols. There are 3 negative symbols, so our answer stays negative. So the opposite of negative 3 is still negative 3. Let's do a quick check. This has an odd amount of negative symbols. If I want, I can rewrite it over here. You have to start from the inside and go to the outside. And that's a note that we're going to make off to the side. You know what? Let's do that right now. Start inside. I have to start right here. The opposite of this negative 11 is positive 11. I still have to have the parentheses around it because I have to drop this negative symbol out. I have not used it yet. So the opposite of a plus 11 is a minus 11. Let's go to the talk about it. Compare the opposite of a number to the original number. So that's where we wrote the rule. If there's an odd amount of negatives, the answer stays negative. And here's an example. We can pick as many negatives as we want as long as it's an odd amount of them. 3 is an odd number, so it stays negative. If I choose an even amount, that would be a positive. Let's move to the last talk about it on this page. Why is the absolute value of a number never negative? It's because it's talking about how far away it is from 0. It's talking about distance. And you're actually traveling that distance, so it's never negative. Oops. We're going to write distance is never negative. It is representing movement. Let's do one more. Let's flip our paper over. Is the location represented by a positive or a negative integer? Well, this question goes with this example over here. So let's take a look. A cave explorer started at sea level, that is 0, and descended, that means going down, in a cave. Her location in relationship to her starting point can be represented by negative 150 feet. Oops, you can even see what I'm circling. How many feet did the cave explorer travel? To find how many feet the cave explorer traveled, you need to find the absolute value of negative 150. Anytime you see these bars, that means absolute value, the distance from 0. It says to find the absolute value, find the distance between the number and 0 on the number line. Go ahead and graph negative 150. How far away is that from 0? It's 150 units. So the cave explorer traveled 150 feet. It says, is the location represented by a positive or a negative? Well, the location is negative. Because it said she went below the sea level. So we have to represent her actual location with a negative number, while her distance is represented by a positive number because that's how far away she is from 0. I like this talk about it over here. What other number has the same absolute value as negative 150? Remember, there are always two numbers that are the same distance from 0. Let's show those. The absolute value of negative 150 is 150. The absolute value of positive 150 is also 150 units away from 0. And that is it for absolute value and opposites.